Welcome to my outdoor studio, the virtual treatment room outdoors. So about tucking and untucking. So that's sitting on your sitting bone, that's tucking, that's untucking. Tucking, untucking, that's neutral. If you find that difficult to do like this, untucking, tucking, you can use something like this shape, flat on the top and circular on the bottom. You sit on it and this will rock you into position. So untuck, tuck, untuck. The movement might be small, but that's okay. Until you can untuck, which is not to happen too quickly, it takes time to undo the tension in the tissues. Once you can untuck, you can extend your leg behind you, and you can also flex without using your lower back, but actually using your hip joint. So one quick test on all fours, wrist under shoulders, knees under hips, and see if you have the curve first. That's the first step, is to relax into it until you have your lumbar curve back, and then add some flexion and see how long you can flex, how far you can flex without losing the lumbar curve. So you might see that it's the loss of the lumbar curve. See how far you can go and still untuck. Okay, so that prepares you for squatting, that kind of exercise. Untuck, relax into it. First step, second step, see how far you go. Once you feel you losing the lumbar curve, come back and do that a few times. See how far you go, see if you can go a little bit further. Okay, so once you can untuck and sit on your sitting bone on the floor, so on these bones rather than on the sacrum, you can start hinging at the hip here rather than rounding your lower back. I'll be rounding here. See if you can hinge, keeping a straight back, hinging here at the hip. So when you squat and you want to keep a lumbar curve, natural curve here, you might need to put something under your heels. I know that if I don't, it's rounding a little bit here. So I'm bringing the floor closer to my heels so I can untuck here and move forward. So hinging here rather than here. That's hinging at the back, that's hinging at the hip, keeping a straight back. Let's try that now standing. So standing, you want a neutral pelvis, which means the pubic symphysis and the ASIS are on the same vertical line. I take my pelvis, I've got these two parts here, ASIS and pubic symphysis. So rather than being tucked, we've untucked, which is the natural way to be, which might not feel natural for you right now yet. So once you can untuck, you should see a curve at the back here, and see how far you can lift your leg up and still keep the lumbar curve. As soon as you lose it, you bring the leg down, see how far you can go, and then you're going to see this happening. See that tilting? That's tucking the pelvis. So see how far you can go. Those legs. Check in the mirror for the lumbar curve. Still there, still there, still there. Ooh, lost it. Back again. Up, up, up. See if you can still relax. Untuck. Lift your leg up. Okay, that's flexion at the hip. Now let's try extension at the hip. So you go on one leg and see if you can swing the leg back. Now you want to keep your pelvis stable. You don't want the pelvis to tuck and untuck at this stage. You want the movement happening at the hip here. That's the trick. The pendulum's happening here. If you find yourself doing this, that's just your pelvis tucking, untucking. So now we're looking at stabilizing the pelvis and just moving at the hip. And that will help you for walking. So we push off that back leg, pushing you forward. You need that extension here. Try the other side. Check for the lumbar curve. Check for a stable pelvis. Move at the hip. How far can you go? Maybe it's not far. If you find yourself rounding, you've gone too far. So untuck pelvis, lumbar curve, swing, keep pelvis where it belongs. For this lunge you will start on your knees. Now you bring one foot forward in front of you and your lower leg will be at more than 90 degrees. See, that's 90 degrees. So you want to bring your foot a little bit forward and you're going to bring your pelvis and your torso forward. So you don't want the top of your pelvis to move in front of the bottom or the rib cage to move in front of the pelvis. You want the bottom of the pelvis, top of the pelvis and the rib cage to move as one unit forward. And you should start feeling something here in the hip flexors. So when hip flexors are tight here, you can't extend the leg back. So if you release here, you'll be able to take your leg further back and use your glutes and your hamstrings. Okay, if you can move foot a little bit forward if you need to. Okay, other side. So you take your other leg forward. Toes are tucked under at the back for stability. So torso, pelvis, one unit moving together, not one in front of the other. So now it's the leg is behind the pelvis, which is what hip extension is. This is not hip extension because it's all on the same line. Here, leg is behind the pelvis. Okay, now from the front, you want to watch out for a couple of things. So you want to be wide enough, you don't want to be on one line and be wobbly, but you're welcome to hold on if you need to. So you want to watch for this hip being higher, so you want to bring the hip on the side of the front leg down, and as you move forward you also want to watch that there's no tilting of the pelvis, that your two hip bones are pointing forward, not one going further in front than the other. Okay, that should feel nice here. Just go as far as feels, you feel a gentle stretch, nothing too strong. So wide enough. Check for any hiking on this side. Moving as one forward. Feel that nice stretch. And if you feel at the back, you might feel your glutes are contracting. You're not squeezing. The contraction happens because you're taking your leg behind your pelvis. It's a natural contraction, not a forced one. Okay, that should help with giving you a bit more hip extension and improving how you walk. So once you can untuck, you can hinge at the hip standing. So pelvis neutral as much as you can, and take your bottom behind you So you're hinging at the hip, your back is straight and relaxed. You should see a lumbar curve here. See how far you can go. Don't be afraid to let your bottom go all the way back. Rather than hinging here in the lower back, you're hinging at the hip, bottom going back behind you, relax back. The good thing about hinging at the hip is that it makes you use the muscles at the back of your leg. So you're using your glutes and your hamstrings, and at first it might feel like it's not happening, but do it bit by bit, so you're recruiting the muscles at the back, and the more you do it, the stronger they will get.